When my daughter entered kindergarten, a toxic mom tried to crown her child queen, so the truth I exposed turned the entire school upside down. I'm Sarah Miller, and my daughter Tiffany just transferred here today. The chat lit up with a string of welcomes and hellos. Just as I was about to type out my own greeting, a huge block of text appeared. Important notice from Tiffany's mom. Girls in the class, please take note. Starting next week, I'll be posting a picture of what my daughter is wearing each day. Please make sure your child doesn't wear the same thing. Also, I request that everyone please switch to the same brand of laundry detergent we use. My daughter has a very sensitive nose and can't tolerate other scents. Finally, my daughter was a C-section baby and is a bit timid. So, I ask you to tell your children not to bully her and make sure she's always treated with priority. Wow, I couldn't help but think, this isn't just a new student, this is a royal princess who's slumming it with us commoners. Some of the moms in the chat were quick to push back. Karen's mom wrote, "Are you serious? What my kid wears is none of your business. Why should we have to cater to you?" Jessica's mom added, "Exactly. And we're supposed to all use your detergent? My son has allergies too, and we use specific stuff. Yeah, who made your kid the queen of the class? My kid is special too." The chat quickly devolved into a debate. Usually, I just chuckled at the ridiculous things these parents said in the group chat. The class teacher was the administrator, and she'd usually step in to calm things down. I didn't see a problem, so I just muted the chat to get some work done. Then I got a direct message. It was from Alyssa, whose daughter Emily was friends with Lily. "Hey Sarah, did you get the same message I did?" For a moment, I didn't understand. I looked at the screen confused and replied, "What message?" The response came almost instantly, a screenshot of a new message in the group, but this time not from Sarah Miller, but from Tiffany herself. The girl had used her mother's phone, or maybe her own, to write in the class group. It was a long text loaded with arrogance, written in the most spoiled way possible. "Hi kids, this is Tiffany. I just wanted to say that I'm not like you. I come from a different family, cleaner, more educated, more refined, so don't come near me if you haven't bathed with lavender soap. I also don't like noise, so if your voice is annoying, stay away from me, and if you're poor or ugly, sorry, but we can't be friends." I closed my eyes and took a deep breath. Was this real? A 5-year-old girl writing this kind of thing? I opened the group again. The screenshots were already being shared. The teacher hadn't spoken up yet. The entire group was on fire, and there I was, with my daughter Lily playing with crayons on the living room carpet, too innocent to know they were turning the school into a social battlefield. It took me a while to react, but when I returned to the group, I saw that Tiffany's mother was online and typing. "Everyone, Tiffany was just playing. She has a very fertile imagination. Let's not turn this into something bigger, please. She's just a special child." Special. That word again. And that's when I realized what was really irritating me. It wasn't just that woman's arrogance. It wasn't just the absurd whim of wanting all of us to buy the same laundry detergent or avoid repeating clothes. It was the idea that everything, absolutely everything, revolved around her daughter, as if the other children were extras in a private little theater. I'm not one to get involved. Seriously. In almost a year of the school group, I had never sent more than good morning and birthday congratulations. But at that moment, I couldn't stay quiet. I wrote calmly but firmly, "Sarah, all children are special. It's not fair or healthy to create an environment where your daughter thinks she has more value than others. And it's not acceptable to write this type of message, or allow her to write, calling classmates ugly or poor. This is bullying. This is early cruelty. If you don't see this, maybe you need to rethink your stance as a mother." The message stayed there for a few seconds. I saw that she viewed it. Silence. Then another mother sent a clapping emoji. Then another and another. Soon, the message was pinned in the group. And then, a bomb. The teacher sent an audio message. "Good afternoon, everyone. I'm aware of what's happening. I just spoke with the coordination. This type of behavior coming from any child or guardian is unacceptable. The school values mutual respect. Tiffany's family will be called for an urgent meeting. Meanwhile, I ask everyone to maintain civility in the group. The children's emotional safety comes first." And it was as if a storm had passed. Sarah fell silent. Tiffany, too. For the rest of the week, no outfit of the day photos appeared. No laundry detergent demands. No royal notices. But at the end of that Friday, when I went to pick up Lily from school, she ran to me crying. At the playground, Tiffany had pushed her off the slide and said, "Your mother is a witch. She's going to regret making me sad." My patience ran out right there. I picked up Lily and went straight to the principal's office. I showed the messages, told what happened, and asked for action. The principal was very polite but hesitant. She said she understood but that the school was inclusive and they couldn't simply remove a student with a sensitive profile. I left there with my blood boiling, and that's when I realized, if no one was going to protect my daughter, I would. And not just protect. I was going to show that woman, and all those who think they can step on ordinary people, that even the quietest mothers know how to make noise when someone touches those they love. This story was just beginning, and if she thought this would end in the school group, she was very wrong, because I am polite but I'm not stupid, and whoever messes with my daughter learns the hard way that not every mother is made of sugar. That night, I was silent on the outside but erupting inside. Lily slept peacefully with bandages on her knees and light breathing while I stared at my bedroom ceiling, my heart boiling. It wasn't just a fall at the playground, it was what that meant. The symbol of impunity, of neglect, of arrogance. I got my laptop and began. I researched everything about this Sarah Miller. It didn't take much. Public social media, active LinkedIn, an Instagram profile full of exhibitionist photos of her daughter in designer clothes with captions like, "My princess deserves the best in the world, and the world must adapt to her." And in the background, the image that caught my attention. The uniform of the company where she worked, a multinational famous for defending diversity and inclusion. So that's what I did. The next morning, I created a new professional profile and sent an email to the company's compliance department. Formal, direct, impeccable. "Dear Sir or Madam, I would like to report a situation of extreme gravity involving an employee of your company, Mrs. Sarah Miller, who has been involved in discriminatory and embarrassing conduct within the school environment of preschool-age children. I am attaching screenshots of public and direct messages in parent groups where your employee demonstrates elitist, abusive, and discriminatory behavior against other children, in addition to allowing her daughter, also a minor, to reproduce such conduct. I understand that the company values social and ethical responsibility, especially in themes like diversity and inclusion. Therefore, I believe that an internal investigation would be coherent given the impact such attitudes can cause to the institution's image." I attached all the screenshots. I sent it. After that, I showered with a calm I hadn't felt for days. At the end of the afternoon, the first consequence emerged. The class group, which had been relatively quiet since the teacher's audio, received a new message from Sarah herself. A long text, but this time not of arrogance, but of panic. "Good afternoon. I ask please that you stop persecuting me. Someone sent my messages to the company where I work, and I'm being investigated internally. This has crossed all limits. I am a mother. I'm trying to protect my daughter. I'm not perfect, but I'm being unfairly attacked. Please stop." The group went silent for a few minutes until Jessica's mother responded with the coldness of someone who was tired of being treated as inferior. "You're only reaping what you sowed." And then, as if everyone had been waiting for someone to take the first step, dozens of messages came. "You exposed our daughters. You wanted to control the group as if we were your daughter's employees. You never apologized for anything, not even when your daughter hurt mine. You think money gives you immunity?" Sarah left the group. She didn't respond. The next day when I went to drop off Lily at school, the coordinator called me to talk. She said that after administrative reflections, Tiffany would no longer be attending the school for an indefinite period, that the family chose to transfer her to an institution more aligned with their parenting style, and for the first time I smiled sincerely. It wasn't pure revenge. It was justice. It was the weight of ego falling from a high heel. But the universe has even more ironic ways of giving back. The following week, I received a call from the father of one of Lily's classmates. He worked at the same company as Sarah. He said that, without naming names, an employee had been placed on disciplinary leave, and rumors were circulating that she used school groups as a stage to promote intolerance disguised as maternal care. After that, Sarah's Instagram account disappeared. Tiffany's profile was deleted, and the only memory left of the princess of perfumed laundry were the echoes of her bossy tone and the embarrassing silence of a graceless fall. But even so, something still bothered me. Because despite having won the battle, something in me knew other mothers like me were still suffering with many Sarahs in other groups, in other schools, being silenced by fear or shame. And that's when the idea came to me. I started writing an article, a chronicle, a real account, but without names. I published it in a mother's forum, then in another and another. The story went viral, thousands of comments, people saying, "The same thing happened here," women telling how they were humiliated by elitist mothers, how their children were excluded for not having trendy sneakers or imported lactose-free lunch. I had created something bigger than just revenge. I had created an alert. And that was just the beginning. After my story gained traction in mothers' forums, I started receiving messages from all corners. A woman from Curitiba wrote to me, telling how her daughter was excluded from all school activities because she didn't wear ballet flats of the same brand as the other girls. A mother from the interior of Minas reported that her son was called Dirty Thing by a little classmate whose parents demanded that the school prohibit children with inadequate dietary standards. That revolted me, but it also gave me a purpose. I started responding to each message with care, guidance, and mainly listening, because I knew what it was like to feel alone facing an elite disguised as concerned motherhood, a false care that, in reality, was a camouflaged attack, and the worst part, many of these women only realized the abuse when they were already destroyed. And that's when I realized that my victory over Sarah Miller had opened a breach. I needed to go further. I looked for a friend who worked in a behavior column for a news portal. I told her what had happened in detail, with all the evidence. She was shocked. She called me for an anonymous interview. I agreed. The article went live 3 days later with the title, "The Empire of Toxic Motherhood, When Mothers Become Villains of Childhood." It exploded. Comments, shares, emails, local newspapers, TV. In less than a week, I was invited to speak at a discussion circle about school bullying promoted by the city's own education department. And then, suddenly I, who was just an invisible mother in the kindergarten class group, became a reference for resistance. But that part was beautiful. Now let's go back to the bitter part. A few days after the report, I received an anonymous message. No name, just a photo. It was my daughter Lily at the school playground, head down, while a woman pointed her finger at her, followed by an audio. "Maybe now you understand what it's like to have a marked daughter. You wanted war, you'll have it. But don't use your daughter as a shield." I couldn't breathe, trembling. That woman, that wretch, was lurking around my daughter's school even after being removed. Not satisfied with being publicly humiliated, she wanted to retaliate in the dirtiest way, using a child. I got in the car and went straight to the school. I demanded to see the camera footage. The coordinator hesitated but allowed it. And there she was, Sarah, outside, talking to a third-party employee, apparently an acquaintance. She waited for Lily to come out for recess and approached. She didn't touch, but she spoke. Something low, something that left my daughter standing, scared, without playing for the rest of recess. I went into shock. How can someone do this to a 5-year-old child? I went straight to the police station. I filed a report. I took the images. I filed for a protective order. The school was notified. The third-party employee was fired. But even with all that, something in me said she wasn't going to stop, and neither was I. I had already made noise. I had already exposed. I had already won on several levels, but now it was personal, because one thing is humiliating a mother in a WhatsApp group. Another very different thing is traumatizing a child, my child. I started investigating. I found out Sarah's address, her daughter's new school, her circle of friends, and that's when I discovered she had not only been removed from work, but her husband had filed for divorce. He, amazingly, had also been a target of her arrogance. And with the public exposure, he decided to leave home, taking the older son, who refused to live with his mother. She was now alone, without a job, without marriage, without support. And even so, she still distilled hatred. This only proved to me the type of person she had always been. The difference is that now, without the social veneer, the mask had fallen. So I decided to take the final step. I gathered all the data, all the images, all the testimonies from mothers who, like me, had suffered with her in previous school groups. With legal support, I founded a small, informal association online called Mothers Against Disguised Abuse. I posted testimonies, I gathered cases, I promoted virtual meetings, and then another bomb exploded. A father from a school where Tiffany had studied before revealed that Sarah had coerced the administration to expel a girl who used a wheelchair, because according to her, she took up too much space and delayed group activities. This story went viral. It appeared in blogs, podcasts, even on a news channel. Sarah became the most hated name of the month, and finally, she disappeared. Her number was deactivated. Her house was put up for sale. Tiffany was removed from school again. We never heard from them again. But the pain she caused, that would take time to pass. My daughter still asked from time to time, why did that lady tell me I was a burden? And I, with my heart in pieces, just said, because there are people who don't know how to love, but mommy knows. And she'll never let anyone do that to you again. And it was true. Never again. Time passed, but the wound remained. Lily went back to playing, went back to smiling, but she wasn't the same as before. She entered the school courtyard as if it were her world. After the episode with Sarah, she hesitated, she observed. She looked for something with her eyes that only she knew how to identify. It was as if she had learned too early that there are people who smile at you with their mouth and stab you with words. I also changed. I was never the type to seek justice with my own hands. I always believed in what's right, in the process, in reason. But what happened taught me that what's right often needs someone with courage to happen. And I had plenty of courage now. Courage and memory. In one of the meetings of the Mothers Against Disguised Abuse group, a participant shared something that paralyzed me. It was a filed complaint from 3 years ago. Another mother, another school group, another city, but the same name, Sarah Miller. The story was frighteningly similar. Sarah had demanded that all parents make monthly contributions to improve the standard of children's lunches because she thought it was absurd for children of people who buy food wholesale to sit with her daughter. When a mother refused to collaborate, Sarah publicly exposed the woman's daughter's lunch in the school group, calling it inadequate food for child development. The child cried, developed food anxiety, and had to change schools. The complaint was shelved for insufficient evidence since Sarah threatened to sue everyone who testified against her. But now, with everything we had, everything documented, all the new victims that emerged, the scenario was different. I took this new information to the lawyer who had helped me with the protective order process. He smiled and said, "Now we have a pattern of behavior." And it was based on this that we filed a collective civil lawsuit. The news hit the city like a bomb. For the first time, mothers who had suffered in silence gained a voice. It was no longer a WhatsApp fight. It was a formal action backed by evidence, by testimonies, by real suffering. I remember sitting in the courthouse waiting room on the day of the preliminary hearing with some of the mothers beside me. Each one with her trauma, with her story. All different from each other, but united by the same oppressor. And then she entered. Sarah. Different from the impeccable, self-assured woman who used to post photos of her daughter with crowns and custom dresses. Now she wore wrinkled clothes, hair pulled back carelessly, and a lost look. I almost felt sorry, almost, but it was enough for her to sit in front of the judge and say, "These mothers are exaggerating, they're jealous, they always were, I just wanted the best for my daughter," and I remembered my daughter with scraped knees, the anonymous message, the silence at recess, the fear in the eyes of a child who couldn't even write properly but already understood what it was like to be humiliated. During my testimony, I didn't cry, I didn't tremble, I spoke with the firmness of someone who carries something stronger than resentment inside their chest. Your Honor, the problem wasn't the laundry detergent, nor the clothes, nor the smell. The problem was the poison with which this woman tried to divide children, as if they were pieces on a social chessboard. And when society remains silent in the face of this, it grows. It repeats. It destroys, not for lack of warning, but for excess of permission. Sarah was sentenced to pay compensation to the families. Little, financially speaking, but enough to be recorded as a public sentence. Enough so that no school would accept her anymore without a history. Enough so that she would have to explain herself every time she tried to start over. But the most important thing, it wasn't the money. It was the warning. To all the Sarahs of the world, you no longer go unpunished. I returned home that day, looked at Lily sleeping with her drawings scattered on the floor, and felt that justice, somehow, had been done. And that's when I decided I wasn't going to stop there. I created a channel, small at first, with videos explaining how to identify microaggressions among children, how to notice when a mother is imposing, exclusion disguised as concern, how to react, how to report, how to protect yourself. The channel grew. Mothers started commenting, sharing, thanking, and more than that, they started making noise in schools, in groups, in meetings. Fear changed sides. But life has its own cycles. And the following year, while I was participating in a pedagogical meeting at the school, an employee pulled me aside. "Sorry to ask, but you're Lily's mother, right?" "Yes. Did something happen?" She smiled at me, a tired smile, but sincere. "I wanted to thank you for everything. I was friends with the employee who was fired, the one who helped Sarah approach your daughter. She told me she regrets it every day, that she didn't know what she was doing, and that after that, she never again closed her eyes to that kind of thing." That caught me by surprise. I wasn't expecting redemption nor apologies. But there, in the middle of the school hallway, I realized the chain was breaking. One by one, the Sarahs were being disarmed. And every time a mother stood up, others felt safe to do the same. Maybe I didn't win just for myself. Maybe in the end, it was for all of us. The success of the channel was something that, not even in my best daydreams, I would have predicted. It started with a few short and direct videos with themes like how to know if your child is being excluded, phrases that disguise prejudice in school groups, and when an adult's vanity harms a child. Soon came the comments, theme requests, interview invitations. But along with the light comes the shadow. Fake profiles started appearing, commenting on the videos, malicious comments saying I was traumatizing other mothers, that women like me are the reason for weak children, that Tiffany was just a child too educated and refined for the environment she was placed in. These comments always had the same tone, aggressive, defensive, full of venom disguised as superiority. Some came with too much information, as if whoever wrote them knew details that weren't in the public videos. You only had to read 2 lines to realize it was Sarah, or someone very close to her. I ignored the first ones, then blocked the following ones. But when they started mentioning my daughter's full name, threatening to reveal her school, show who she really is, and expose what the militant mother teaches at home, I realized I could no longer let it slide. I went to the police station again. I filed a report for digital stalking and cyberbullying. I presented screenshots, links, evidence that the profiles were fake. The officer this time was more direct. "You messed with someone who doesn't know how to lose." Sarah was crumbling and trying to cling to the only power she still thought she had, that of fear. But she didn't know me anymore, because it wasn't just for me anymore, nor for Lily, nor for the other mothers. Now it was for what I had built. For every woman who cried in silence, seeing her child being left out. For every father who felt small, being treated as inferior for not living in a gated community. For every child who understood too early what it was like to be judged for not being the standard. I continued. I grew. I was called to speak at a state conference on child emotional health. I presented a dossier with the impacts of early social exclusion. I spoke about Tiffany's case without naming names but leaving the message clear. I received applause, invitations to other lectures. I invited psychologists, pedagogues, and even teachers to participate in channel videos. But it was at one of these meetings that something unexpected happened. A woman approached me at the end of a lecture. She must have been a little over 40, discreet, simple clothes. But her look told me she carried something heavy. "Can I tell you something?" she asked. "Of course," I replied, offering a smile. She took a deep breath, hesitated, then let it all out at once. "I worked as Tiffany's nanny for 2 years before she moved to your city. I was paralyzed," she continued. "I saw up close what that girl became, not because she was bad, but because she was molded for it." The mother made her repeat phrases of superiority, practice mocking smiles in front of the mirror as if it were training. She said, "If you're perfect, the other mothers will feel small, and when they feel small, they do what you want." I couldn't respond. I was shocked, nauseated. One day, I said that was wrong, that she was teaching cruelty disguised as self-esteem. And you know what she did? She said I was fired, that she didn't want her daughter to have contact with people who think small. I left quietly, afraid, and stayed silent for a long time until I started seeing you speak. Until I realized I wasn't crazy, that this really was abuse, disguised, but real. She handed me an envelope with evidence, photos, messages, copies of notes that Sarah sent with demands to the school, instructions on how Tiffany should be treated, notes about clothes other children wore with observations like, "This girl in pink needs to be excluded." Horrible style. It was a private dossier from inside her house, and now it was in my hands. I took a deep breath, held back emotion, and said, "You have no idea what this means." "I do," she replied. "It means that now no one will be able to say you exaggerated." With this material, my lawyer initiated a new process, now for collective moral damages and induction of discriminatory child behavior. Heavier, more complete. Now we had the complete picture, a mother who not only allowed cruelty, but taught it. And then came the day I received the sweetest notification of all. Sarah Miller had been formally cited. The judge authorized the start of the process based on compelling evidence. There would be a hearing, there would be an investigation, and most likely, there would be a definitive judicial conviction. It was on that day that I sat with Lily, now older at 7 years old, and said, "Remember the lady who hurt you with words?" She nodded. "She's going to learn that words have consequences." My daughter smiled. "And you're going to tell other children too, right?" "Always," I replied, "because no child deserves to be silenced. Not you, not anyone." And she hugged me tight, like someone who understands that the mother she has isn't just the one who makes afternoon snacks and reads bedtime stories. She's the one who fights for her, who doesn't run away, who doesn't get intimidated, and who, even facing the most made-up threats, knows that no mother needs permission to protect what is most precious to her. The war was far from over, but now those who trembled were no longer us. The day of the final hearing arrived like one of those gray mornings when the sky seems to know that something important is about to happen. I wore the best outfit I had, not out of vanity, but because I knew that there, in that room, I represented many other mothers. I took my folder with all the documents, photos, evidence, and took a deep breath before leaving. The courthouse was packed. Some mothers from the group went to support me. Others appeared just to see with their own eyes the woman who for so long had intimidated other mothers, educators, and even children. And there she was, Sarah Miller. But this time, she wasn't wearing high heels, perfect makeup, or that look of someone who believed she was untouchable. She was dejected. She wore dark, simple clothes with her hair pulled back carelessly. She sat with the lawyer beside her but without really looking at him. Her hands trembled slightly. When the judge entered and the session began, the atmosphere became heavy, as if the air had weight. The process was serious, and for the first time everything she had done was gathered in one place, no longer scattered in loose screenshots or mother group gossip. Now it was official. It had weight. It had consequence. The first to testify was a mother from Sao Paulo, who told how Sarah had managed to expel her daughter from school for being too disorganized to live with Tiffany. Then, an employee from Tiffany's old school, fired years before, explained how she was coerced into treating the girl as a school celebrity, even receiving daily spreadsheets with instructions that said phrases like, "Make sure my daughter feels more important than the others." Then it was my turn. I stood up, walked to the indicated spot, and looked directly at the judge, not at Sarah. She already knew what I had to say, and deep down she had already heard it. She just didn't want to listen. "Your Honor," I began with a firm voice, "I am here because I don't believe mothers should be silenced by fear. Because children shouldn't pay for their parents' vanity. Because my 5-year-old daughter was humiliated, excluded, frightened, all because of toxic behavior that started with a simple message in a school group. But this is about something bigger. We are facing a pattern, a repetition of emotional abuse masked by money and social manipulation. This woman taught her daughter that there are people who are worth more than others and that value lies in smells, clothes, and status. And when this enters a classroom, Your Honor, it becomes poison, a poison that spreads, that kills self-esteem, that traumatizes even before literacy. I'm not here just for my daughter, I'm here for all the others who couldn't make it here." There was silence. No sound, no cough, no chair dragging. Sarah tried to speak afterward. She tried to justify. She said that everything she did was trying to protect her daughter, that the world is cruel, and that she wasn't understood, but her voice had no strength. She was defeated, not by words, but by her own actions, which returned like an echo in the form of justice. The judge was clear. He sentenced Sarah to pay compensation to the families involved, ordered the publication of the sentence in an official channel of the district, and determined that she participate mandatorily in a parental re-education program. More than that, he publicly recognized that the damages caused were not accidental. They were constructed, repeated, predicted. When I left the courthouse, the sky was already opening. Light touched the street as if the world outside was different from what we left inside, and in a way it was. My daughter was waiting for me in the car, playing with a coloring book she loved. When she saw me, she smiled in that innocent, pure way that only children know how to offer. I got in the car and held her little hand. "Done, my love," I said with a choked voice. Mommy did what she promised. She looked at me, confused, but smiled. She didn't need to understand the details. She just knew she was safe, and that was enough. In the days that followed, the repercussion was great. The sentence became a reference in seminars. Emails arrived from mothers across the country, saying they now knew they could fight, that it wasn't an exaggeration to demand respect. Lily's school principal called me to thank me. She said the school also learned that now teachers were more attentive, more trained, more human. And gradually, I returned to ordinary life. But I was never the same again. Over time, Lily healed completely. She went back to running, playing, laughing freely. She never looked back when I dropped her off at the school door. She never asked me again why that lady said she was a burden. And as for Sarah, I learned through acquaintances that she moved to another city. She tried to start over somewhere else, but with the internet, with records, with the mark of what she left, she was no longer invisible. She was known and remembered, not with hatred, but with alertness. And Tiffany, we never saw her again. Part of me hopes that, away from that suffocating mother, she has a chance to learn what empathy is, to learn that the world doesn't revolve around an imaginary crown, and that real princesses don't humiliate, they embrace. Today, I continue with my channel, with my work, with my daughter, with my voice, because what I learned in this story is that mothers, when united, are the most powerful force in the world. That silence protects the oppressor, and that none of us is alone. This story was mine, but it could be yours. I protected my daughter, exposed a toxic mother, and turned her own games against her. So tell me, am I really the asshole here?